We have a question for Mr. Koo. Of course.
I think I'm going to ask the difficult question you asked me to think about. The two events we had in Singapore this year, the heavy rainfall, which took everybody by surprise and caused the downtown area to be shut down for a few hours. That this was not expected of Singapore. How could that happen?
Well, nobody can plan for the weather, right? Whether or not it's climate change, I think we certainly are seeing a lot more intense storms in Singapore and everywhere else. I think we have floods in many parts of the world, Pakistan, China, and everywhere. I mean, my daughter lives in Washington, D.C., and one morning she called me and said, there's a flash flood in Washington, D.C., and power is out for 8 hours. So I think in a way, it's a new urban phenomenon that we are seeing as we get more urbanized, and the weather pattern seems to be changing. One can't say for sure whether it's climate change or climate variability, but the fact is, certainly it's changing. In Singapore's case, given that we are in the equator where we have heavy, intense rains, our system and infrastructure is designed to cope with very intense storms as well as the monsoon rains. And the approach we have taken, I mean, given our situation, has seen us kind of reduce the amount of flood areas. 20, 30 years ago, it was about 3,000 over hectares, and it's now reduced to about 60 odd hectares. A lot of that, of course, is investment in infrastructure, about $2 billion worth of it. And of course, the highlight of that in recent years was the Marina Barrage. And what I can say is that with the Marina Barrage in place, thank goodness for the Marina Barrage, otherwise we will probably have seen even worse floods than what we saw. Yeah.
Thank you. And do we have another question for Mr. Koo?
If we have the same kind of rain again, is the same thing going to happen? Or
if it's exactly the same thing, then of course, until we change the infrastructure, of which, of course, there are plans. I mean, what's happening now is you do get a lot of these flash floods that comes and go in 20 minutes, right? And on very, very localized areas. And very often, the solution there is basically to, do a quick investigation and find out what. There's a particular bottleneck in that particular localized drainage system. If that can be fixed, then next time an intense storm happens, it will not happen again. But some of these are basically the drainage system is perfectly fine. It's just the weather, and there's a big trade-off between what you design the infrastructure for. And the cost. I mean, and in a very urban situation, you can design for a 1 in 5 year storm, 1 in 10, 1 in 15, 1 in 20, 1 in 100. But there's a big trade-off between cost and risk. And so these are the trade-offs that every city has to make. And for us, with the kind of intense storms, I mean, you see some of the canals in Singapore, they are huge things which are dry most of the time. And it costs a lot of money to build those canals. So it's a trade-off that one has to manage.